Welcome to the IBSC session at the International First Congress of the Researchers of Borders and Borderlands, which is happening in Wroclaw and Opole. We are gathered here in Opole today on the 17th of September 2024. This session is dedicated to the presentation of the work of the members of the International Border Studies Center at the University of Gdańsk. And I am happy, my name is Grzegorz Welizarowicz. I am very happy that I'm joined today by two of my colleagues of the IBSC, Professor Magdalena Nowak, and Professor Izabela Morska from the University of Gdańsk. We will proceed in the following order. First, Professor Magdalena Nowak will present her paper, The IBSC and Crisis in Ukraine, Integration, Participation, and Future Perspectives. After that, we will have Professor Izabela Morska presenting her work, Revisiting Paweł Adamowicz's Humanitarian Vision, a comparative analysis with the Slovenian Humanitarian Corridor of 2015. And after that, I will present my work, International Border Studies Center at the University of Gdańsk, Borderlands Paradigm, Practice, some Examples. So with this, welcome to the session, and I'll give the floor to Professor Magda Nowak. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this nice presentation, for your kindness. I would like, for the start, I would like to thank very much to the organizers of the conference, and especially to Professor Welizarowicz, Dr. Professor Welizarowicz, for allowing me to present online. And I would like to go straight to the point by presenting my presentation, and I'm going to talk about the crisis, the Russian open aggression on Ukraine, and what happened in the International Border Studies Center in years 2022, 2024, up till now, what we have been doing for and with our Ukrainian partners, and to support and to help Ukrainian scholars, Ukrainian PhD students, and what are the results of it. So, integration, participation, and future perspectives. First of all, maybe I would just tell a bit about me. I specialize in Ukrainian studies, Polish-Ukrainian relations as well, and I didn't realize until the 24th of February 2022 that all my life led to this moment of war, and to this moment that I was able to help my Ukrainian partners by signing grants, by providing them help, by being the patron of their PhD dissertations. And in fact, that is what I have been doing for the last 2 years, over last 2 years. I am a member, I joined International Border Studies Center in December 2021, and I would like to thank very much to the first grant recipients for allowing me to join. I am honored. And then since November 2022, I am included into the group of grant recipients. So many thanks for that. Now, I would like to tell you that what I'm going to present is because the International Border Studies Center can act institutionally, and as well is active through the members. So I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Dr. Anna Mazurkiewicz, to Dr. Grzegorz Welizarowicz, who both served as the heads of the International Border Studies Center. And also that was not what we managed to do for the Ukrainians wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a support of course, of the heads of the center. but also we had the support from the rector of the University of Gdańsk and from the head, the dean of the Faculty of History, Professor Dr. Arkadiusz Janicki. So it was a lot of energy, resources, and personal involvement were important for the successful results of the support that we provided. And also I would like to underline that many of our International Border Studies Center members were involved in very personally by providing their personal resources, by opening their homes to the refugees from Ukraine, to migrants, and in fact refugees, not migrants, and also by providing their private funds for people, or by spending hours helping them. Because not only organizing their stay at UG, but also helping them in every single matter that they have, starting from dentists to the place where they stay, to, for example, healthcare for children, places, housing, and other things. So just for that, I would like to thank everybody who did it on behalf of my colleagues from Ukraine. Now just
Magda, can I just ask you to make this presentation, open this presentation at full screen, because we can see that you're scrolling through.
Okay, sorry, I have forgotten. I will start from the beginning by opening. Just a moment. I have forgotten. Sorry. Okay, so that was me, yes. And now the second slide, I just want to talk about my book only because it was co-financed by the International Border Studies Center. And what I wanted to say that without the support that I received, the book received by the International Border Studies Center, it wouldn't be able to be published in Ukraine in 2023. It is the English translation of, it is Ukrainian translation of my habilitation work that was the translation was started before war, the open aggression, but it continued. It has been translated by Andrei Pawlyshin, one of the best translators that you can have from Polish into Ukrainian. And it was published by Svichado and by University of Gdańsk. But the most important support that made it available was provided by International Border Studies Center. Without this financial support of the International Border Studies Center, it wouldn't be possible. So after it was published in Ukrainian, it was promoted in Poland in the European Solidarity Center. Then it was covered, the promotion was covered by the Polish TV Gdańsk in Ukrainian. Then it was also promoted in Ukraine through webinars. It was one of the webinars was organized, is called Historical Webinar, and it was organized by Dr. Władysław Jacenko from Kharkiv. Another was organized by the Faculty of History and Law, Skovoroda Pedagogical University in Kharkiv. Then we had two live presentations, live promotions at Valdosta State University, USA. I presented the book and my research and the last 30 years of Polish-Ukrainian reconciliation process at the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Valdosta State University, USA. And I also presented the book at the so-called Philosophy and Religious Studies Club at Valdosta State University. Then it continue, presentations continue, and I also presented the book in Sweden, at Lund University. So we had also the interview. I had also interview presenting the book and the International Border Studies Center for the Ukrainian version of Free Europe Radio that was broadcasted in Lviv, 2023. So now I would like to switch now. Now the book is being translated into English and is going to be published in open access in English next year. Now I would like to switch to the financial support that we provided for our Ukrainian partner universities over the last 2 years. First of all, I wanted to say that here in these presentations, in these initiatives, International Border Studies Center was represented by the Deputy Dean of Faculty of History, University of Gdańsk, Professor Dr. Anna Mazurkiewicz, and by me. And also there were some people who are not maybe members of the International Border Studies Center, but they were cooperating. So PhD students, doctors from different faculties that also participated in those and also gave their funds to support our colleagues from other universities. In fact, we gave support, but financial support, but it was not always directed straight to the universities that we supported, but through universities, we supported Ukrainian society, Ukrainian people in Ukraine during the war. So we had a couple of, you can see the posters on the slide. The first two money gatherings, we had the first poster that is, you can see the logo of Ukrainian Catholic University and logo of the Faculty of History. We had gathered money and gave money to the Ukrainian Catholic University, and also we gathered money for the Poltava National Pedagogical University. Both of those, this financial help was supported first by 32 people, then by 40 people, and it was the finances were used to buy medical materials and hygiene products and medicines. So there were mostly for people in the region. In Lviv, which had a lot of refugees at that time, and also in Poltava, which had refugees from Kharkiv, Donetsk, Lugansk, and Sumy at that time. Then in next year, 2023, we organized an event that was happening at the anniversary of the Russian open aggression next year. And we gathered money for the Magia Karpat Foundation that was supposed to buy necessary help, mostly medical equipment, dressings, and individual first aid kits. And they were supposed to buy it. They bought it, and then they distributed them at the front. And then on the 24th of February 2024, so this year, we had gathered money for the Kharkiv National University, because in January 2024, this university was, there was a heavy bomb attack on the university by Iskander missiles, and they lost 550 windows. And we were gathering money for the windows to be restored and replaced. So it was very successful. All those four money funds that we provided, financial support, and it was important part of our cooperation with our partners as well, because they just needed this particular help. Now the other area of our activity were grants and exchanges, because scholars in Ukraine had this feeling that they completely lost aim in their scholarly life, and they couldn't. They had the first thought that you can see with the first lady in red and with a bluish microphone. This was our first guest, Julia Kisielova from Karazin University in Kharkiv. She escaped with two children and her mom from Kharkiv to Lviv, and then from Lviv to Lublin. And I contacted her, and proposed that she might be the recipient of the scholarship of the so-called Polish-Ukrainian scholarly program that our university provided for Ukrainian scholars. So her first thought after the aggression was that she will never ever work scholarly anymore. That's the end of her scholarly life. And since this first moment that she visited us in May 2022, we have been cooperating with her closely. She was many times in Gdańsk on Erasmus, twice at least on Erasmus exchanges. She was at the border studies seminar 2023. So it was important that we managed to help her continue her scholarly work. The same happened to the other person that you can see at the top in this black jacket. This is Dr. Victoria Voloshenko at that moment from the National University of Transport in Kyiv. She applied for the grant from Polish National Center of Science, and she received a year grant to stay in Poland, and she decided to stay at the Faculty of History, University of Gdańsk. So she's now here in the photo presenting in Polish results of her research that she managed to continue doing for her habilitation, continue doing during her stay in Poland. She now finishes her habilitation. We also had Erasmus exchanges with both Kharkiv University, with two Kharkiv universities, with Karazin University and with Skovoroda University. And you can see in the photo, which is on the bottom, you have a photo with Szeptycki, with my Szeptycki book, and you can see Julia Kisielova standing near the poster, and then next to her is Ludmiła Zeleńskaja. Is a dean at the Skovoroda University in Kharkiv. She was at the exchange. Then on the other side, you can see me. And then next to me, you can see Dr. Victoria Iwaszczenko, also the professor at the Karazin University in Kharkiv. She also visited us as the Erasmus exchange participant. And then the last photo, you can see the Dean of Faculty of History. Without his support, we wouldn't be able to, he always had to say yes to some of our initiatives or to cooperation with International Border Studies Center. But you can see in the middle three ladies, three professors from professor doctors from the National Transport University in Kiev. So we have Dr. Irina Avtushenko, Dr. Victoria Tsipko, and Dr. Irina Schlichta. They also visited us at the Erasmus Exchange. We also had Vychovsky Reward recipient who visited us in October, November 2022, Dr. Olga Morozova from the Black Sea National University, Petro Mochyła in Mykolaiv. And we also cooperated with the Historiographical Society that has half of the members in Ukraine. And we had some presentations. Some of those people who visited us had presentations online for the society. And also we had a guest speaker from Germany, Dr. Ricarda Volpis from Westliche Wilhelms University at Münster, who also presented because she specializes in Ukrainian studies. Now we have lectures and participations at conferences. We had a lot of all those people that we managed to invite participated in different conferences and online. Here are in-person events, but we also had online events. And so it all started from me being asked to write a short text about history of Ukraine. And I was writing it overnight from the 24th to the 25th of February 2022. And the next day it was published at the webpage of the University of Gdańsk. It was called Ukraine Over 100 Years of History. It is still being, you can still read it. Then we had online presentation that was recorded and still could be seen, could be watched at our International Border Studies Center webpage, which is the joint lecture with Marta Studenna-Skrukwa, organized by Dr. Anna Mazurkiewicz, and presenting the changes of borders and historical perspective of Polish-Ukrainian also relations and Ukrainian borders. Then we had different open days, Fridays, the series Friday at History, that all those people whom I've already presented were presenting. And here, so you can see at the top, you can see two photos. One photo with this very tall man in the very middle is our friend, Professor John Dunn from Valdosta State University, as you see, with all the our Ukrainian partners, and with two deputy deans of the Faculty of History, also members of the International Border Studies Center, Dr. Anna Mazurkiewicz and Dr. on one side with the key on her neck, and on the other side you can see Dr. Anna Sobecka, also the Deputy Dean of the Faculty of History. So they supported us. In the middle you have our friends from Kharkiv and Kiev, Dr. Kisilova, Dr. Ivashchenko, Dr. Voloshenko, and me and Dr. John Dunn was served as our moderator, and also presented, and he also presented the text, the paper about the development of importance of the post stamps for the development of national consciousness, Ukrainian consciousness. We also had big conferences. We had two Piasa's World Congress of Polish Studies in Białystok 2022, in this year in Warsaw, and the picture at the bottom is from Warsaw. And then we had in-person presentations in Valdosta State University, Georgia, at the annual meeting of the Georgian Association of Historians. And then we had also the participation of me and my PhD student at the annual meeting of European Network of Intercultural Elderly Care 2023. We had also Border Seminar 2023, and we had presentation, the whole so-called the first Ukrainian panel at the Border Seminar. And thanks to Dr. Grzegorz Welizarowicz, we could meet there and discuss Ukrainian problems. We had also the ACES convention 2023 and the panel about Kresy, the Polish Eastern Borderland. So, and last not least, we had also the conference at the Miroszewski Center in Warsaw this year. And we hope to continue this cooperation. So as you see, it all went from Ukraine, somewhere eastern borders of Ukraine, through Gdańsk, Warsaw, to Germany, Sweden, up to the United States. And now I would like to, we also had Berlin presentation somewhere there, but I would like to finish with the final conclusions and future perspectives. So what are the future perspectives according to how I see them? We have gathered a lot of capital through all those difficult years. So it is this post-traumatic growth that we have. We have gathered a lot of trust on the side of our Ukrainian, not only Ukrainian, American as well, and German partners. We have the network of people that we have built a network of people with whom we can cooperate and we can continue working. We have a lot of goodwill because of what people, their personal efforts that people and personal resources people use to help Ukrainian scholars. We've gathered a lot of experience. We have mutual understanding, and we have a lot of knowledge that we managed to also scholarly development. We expanded our scholarly development. So I can see that the development, the further development can go in around these areas. It can be further cooperation with our Ukrainian scholar partners and their institutions, and it's going on. Cooperation with the Ukraine Catholic University in Lviv, with Karazin University in Kharkiv, with Skovoroda University in Kharkiv, now also with the University of Toronto, Institute of Andrei Sheptytsky Institute in Toronto. We have also now cooperation with the Regensburg University and also around Ukrainian studies, because they have opened the so-called Think Space Ukraine that we hope to expand our cooperation with. Now we are trying to get a very large grant from the American institution for the publication, and the application is in process. And we are also cooperating with the Miroszewski Center in Warsaw. So this is, and I think in those areas, the cooperation will be expanding, and I hope that International Border Studies Center will continue existing, and it is a great hub that allowed us to not only help our Ukrainian partners, but also to strengthen our scholarly development and to build the network. And I would like to thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Magda. So with this, I think we have time for questions. Maybe we can ask questions now that we are just fresh from your talk.
Yes, please.
Can we do that? Yeah, because well, my question that let me ask this question. Where do you see the possible areas of research? So, what topics do you think are talking about those future perspectives? Where do you actually see the research going? What areas? Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, of course, many of those areas that are developing through me because I am supporting. We have a PhD student. I have had this contact before, and they have started expanding. But what are the areas? For example, Ukrainian and Polish intelligentsia studying of the 19th and 20th century. We have a Ukrainian diaspora in United States and Canada and their historiography and their activity, but not contemporary, but in the, let's say, up till 19th century and till the end of the first, let's say, till the end of the Second World War. We have, of course, Szeptycki studies, and this big grant that we are applying for is connected with Szeptycki studies, but it's not going to be a grant for research itself, but for the publication of the sources in translation into English. So Ukrainian, Polish, German, French, in Latin, in Italian sources connected with Szeptycki, published in English translation. And it is, if we manage to get it, this is a dream team, because these are people who are highly specialized in Szeptycki, and there are only maybe a couple of people like that in the world. So that's, we hope to get the money, or even if we don't get it, probably this cooperation will go on. My personal research is going to go on around intelligentsia, and also I have a PhD student who is not our member, but he participated in our initiatives, who is studying Catholic Church in, again, generally he's studying Kharkiv and Sumy in the mid-19th century, mid-20th century, and mostly concentrates on development of the Catholic Church, and by that, on the presence of people who were usually migrants, or they were like Poles, they stayed there, they lived there, but many of them were migrants. They were French, they were maybe German, and they were Catholic, and they were the very, very vital for the development of this region. So this region is very important because it is now severely attacked, and it is preserving also the heritage of Ukrainian heritage from the Eastern Ukraine, because my PhD student, Anton Hus, is from Mariupol. He used to work for the local museum in Mariupol, and he is now preparing a text about what was lost there, what disappeared, what they had in the museum, and that is now lost.
Collections, museum collections.
Yeah, collections, the development of Catholic Church there, and this history will be lost if we do not continue this research. So these are the areas, and also there is also American studies, because not only me, I am not only doing for mostly it will be probably history of historiography, but not only, but also there will be there is also, I have also another PhD student who is studying the American consulate in Gdańsk, and now he is at that moment in the United States, and he he's developing nicely, and he will be probably also developing into direction of American studies. So we have American studies, Ukrainian studies, and it's commingled, and it's all connected with migrations, with borders, with also borders understood, borderland understood as a cultural area. So I'm all my life I'm studying borders by that.
Okay.
So there'll be this kind of I would say global study, very global perspectives.
One other question. So I should note that also Yulia Kiselova was participating in the symposium that we organized in May this year, Globality Forum. She was
Yes.
She was part of that. So we were very happy, as well as Victoria Ivashchenko. She was there with. They were
together. I was at that end. At that end, you were helping with the scholarly, and I was providing them with the housing. That you didn't know about, but I did. So it is always like that. They are participating somewhere, and they also say, please, Magda, we need a housing. And also we also have, I am usually giving them, I am also usually referee or some kind of giving them writing opinion when they are applying for grants, and they are continue applying for different grants to get, for example, for a moment to go to Warsaw or to go to Germany. So I'm usually signing their opinions, yes, so that to help them develop further.
Are there any questions from the room? You have a question, sir? Okay. Should I go there? Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
I think the person has to come for a moment so that I can hear. Hello, hi.
Hello. So thank you very much for this very interesting insights. I'm sorry, I was, I think, 2 minutes late for your presentation, maybe even more. I can't tell, but I think you were.
I appreciate your presence.
Yeah, thank you. So my question relates to actually the initiatives you were presenting, because for me, I have to admit, it were the center you're representing is quite new to me. I mean, I heard before, but now I got more insights. And I am very much appreciating this initiative. And I was actually hoping that you were saying the sentence you ended up saying, that you consider yourself something like as a hub for this kind of initiatives, which I very much appreciate. But this also relates to my question. Considering you as a hub for border studies in, let's say, Ukrainian, as you said, problems or issues, and how far do you collaborate with other centers for border studies, let's say the GR Center for Border Study, or also the one in Frankfurt, Borders in Motion, for example, or in southern Denmark. So we have, I mean, different also hubs of border studies in Europe, but they are not particularly, representative for Ukrainian matters. So, is there something like an initiative? Because I really feel that these, of course, the issues are growing, and everywhere you can find researchers who are into this field, but it's kind of emerging, and it's very, it's very particular. And you as a hub, or your initiative, could gather all these, so I don't know, is there something like a collaboration, or, and sorry for this long talk, but
It's okay, great. Thank you very much for your question. It's a very interesting question. So I would like to start from the fact that probably Dr. Velizarowicz will tell more about that in his speech, but we had the International Border Studies Center is it has different areas of activities, and it's very global in its interests, scholar interests. So because we are tackling different kinds of borders all around the globe. So I am not the only person, and of course, without because I specialize in Ukraine, it happened that many of those initiatives, not all of them, of course, but as it turned out that I was helping, only just helping sometimes, and some other people were the most active. For example, Dr. Velizarowicz or Dr. Mazurkiewicz were the main had the ideas, and I was just responding to them, or sometimes I was just only giving some support, or I was giving ideas that we can support financially, and then it was executed by our dean. But Dr. Mazurkiewicz helped that, and she is a member of International Border Study Center, and I also helped because I contacted them with the universities in Lviv. So this is a very complex body, this International Border Studies Center, and this is just one sample of our activity, which, as you see, is very large. So that's one thing. Another thing I wanted to underline that we have a good cooperation, and this cooperation, in fact, started developing 2020, I think, two maybe, and then continued through 23 and 24 now with the Regensburg University in Germany, and with this initiative that was mentioned by me, Think Space Ukraine. And so this is and with scholars in EOS there, and this is not under the label of the border studies, but it is in fact border studies. And I think I do not have myself, I do not have established cooperation with these centers that you have mentioned, but I think Dr. Velizarowicz would be able maybe to say more about our directions that the other institutions that we would like to cooperate, and maybe I don't know about something that was going on because I specialize mostly in Ukrainian studies, and by that I was just in the middle of those events that were connected with Ukraine.
So
Sorry to
you're specifically asking about the cooperation around the Ukrainian.
Yes, and I don't have with those border institutions that were mentioned. I don't have cooperation, but I am deeply interested in cooperating. So maybe we can exchange contacts.
Yes, absolutely. One thing we should definitely learn from you about those centers. One center that we have a collaboration with, and I know that they are also supported like we are of Ukrainian scholars, is the center at the Unigar, which is Saarland, Saarbrücken, under Astrid Fellner, and she has extensively helped Ukrainian scholars. Some Ukrainian scholars are based in Saarbrücken right now. And this is something we should definitely explore, this possibility of expanding the focus of the Ukrainian relations. And I'm also very interested in things of the more contemporary nature. So, for example, we have done interviews with our Ukrainian scholars who are based in Poland. I think Anya Mazurkiewicz shared those interviews with me. So this is something, the stories of the refugees coming to Poland and the refugee stories, we are very interested in that. And we're trying to think of ways of how we can engage those narratives in a creative way, because we're always interested in the arts as a kind of an experimental cognitive tool. That's one thing, the narratives of migration and the refugee crisis, the refugees. And another thing that I'm currently exploring is the idea of the education, of the Ukrainian education, the kids who are being And I would be interested to talk to our colleagues and about the histories of the stories of their children and that kind of a trans-border experience in the education process. Especially as it goes, it can be placed in a comparative context. For example, with Magda mentioned our global focus. The Mexican-American border is one of particularly of my interest, and I'm currently in touch with scholars working in New Mexico and Las Cruces, doing research on the trans-border education. And I think this is something I'm very interested in, comparative research and education. Okay, Magda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We should proceed with another presentation.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me and thank you for helping very much. I appreciate.
Thank you. So we would like now Professor Izabela Morska to step in.
Maybe I will, or maybe, shall I be like that, or you want me to be as a avatar?
Well, you can be. You can.
Yeah, I will just mute.
Yeah. Let me just share this presentation of Professor Morska. Sure. So, sure. Sure. Okay. Can you, Magda? Can you confirm that you can see? Okay. Okay, to przejdziemy do jakiś pokaz slajdów, tak? Od początku. No i co? Yes. Okay. It's good for you, Magda? Okay. We can't hear you.
It's excellent, very good. I can see it. No.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. Okay. So just to be formal, this is the presentation by Professor Izabela Morska, revisiting Paweł Adamowicz's humanitarian vision of 2018. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Awesome to grab water, thanks. All right. Make myself up a little bit on the stair. No, it will not happen, but there I am. So indeed, this is the comparative case study that I'm hoping to fit in 20 minutes. And just na razie nie, ale I'm trying different keys, so hopefully it will, because I tried these and they, oh.
Oh, yes.
So indeed, Paweł Adamowicz died violently, was assassinated on January 11, 2019 at a charity event at the time when he seemed to be coming into embracing his power as a person and the mayor of progressive city, the time when he appeared able to merge both Vilnius and Gdańsk Hanseatic traditions, and also at the time when he proceeded to propose to create a humanitarian corridor, kind of envisioning the next refugee crisis, so to speak, to follow. The Balkan one of 2019, which is why actually I am hoping to compare just for a moment with the Slovenian humanitarian corridor, which indeed saved the day in fall of 2015. So after the refugee crisis of 2015, it was predictable that the crisis would be repeated, and perhaps I'm using the word crisis in quotation marks. The only remaining question was where exactly and how soon, and predictably it was going to happen rather soon. And so in 2018, Paweł Adamowicz publishes his credo, Gdańska Wspólnota. It is his second book. The opening first one was published 10 years earlier, 2007 or 8. And the title was Gdańsk as a Challenge. So here I'm translating. So apparently, as you see, he has grown comfortable in Gdańsk in the meantime. He was the mayor, he held the post of the city mayor since 1998 and continued to be. He was not voted in the first elections, just basically limited elections. He was approved by the city board, but then elections were held 4 years later. And now I'm translating this title, so you could just say that, of course, as a community, but I think he means it in this largest sense of Gdańsk as communal good, and let us see what means. So indeed, Adamowicz starts this book with his remembrance of Benjamin Barber, who died in 2017. And Adamowicz admits to be inspired by both Benjamin Barber's book, If Mayors Rule the World, Dysfunctional Nations and Rising Cities of 2013, as well as immense work of Benjamin Barber, who acted as an activist and unifying agent, connecting mayors of major cities from around the globe. And actually they knew one another, and Barber acknowledges and praises Adamowicz in his own work. So Barber's thesis is that nations as concepts are obsolete or becoming obsolete. They brought 400 or 500 years to prove just that. Whereas the cities acknowledge, the cities inherit the tradition of polis, of ancient cities, which practice the early form of democracy. Throughout centuries, cities do thrive when they are diverse. Barber himself was inspired by the concept history of Hanseatic League. And they say cities are by their nature democratic. Nations tend to become autocratic as soon as national purity is at stake, whereas cities are where democracy can be maintained in globalizing work. And so in 2016 already, Gdańsk is becoming ready to welcome immigrants, and apparently Adamowicz in his work does not differentiate between refugees and migrants. These are just people fleeing to safety. And so Gdańsk City Council Under Adamowicz's guidance, passes several resolutions. The main one is to accept Gdańsk's model of integration, which is still in place. Also, in the fall of 2016, the Board for Migrants, meaning Rada do Spraw Imigrantów I Imigrantek, meaning women's migrants are not exclusively acknowledged, initiates its activities in Gdańsk European Solidarity Center, symbolically, obviously. And in addition to that, in Gdańsk work office, labor office, a special subdivision for employing migrants is established. Gdańsk also has already become part of ICON, International Cities of Refuge Network, the network providing shelter for writers and artists, promoting freedom of speech, defense of democratic values, international solidarity. Apart from Gdańsk, also Kraków and Wrocław belong to ICON network, and so since then we host writers, artists recommended by ICON, and first writer is actually a Palestinian poet from Gaza, fleeing persecution from Hamas, interestingly. And so this book, which was published in October, November of 2018, is clearly challenged to the current nationalistic government. PiS government. Actually, Adamowicz doesn't hide his outrage at the fact that government's declaration not to accept even a single person coming from the countries ravaged by wars. We were expected to take in 6,100 something refugees by the EU, but we refused as a country. It was after the, of course, right after the 2015 countries. It was stunning because at the time EU, I mean, you wouldn't want us to accept just a bunch of unknown migrants. We could pick and choose. Slovakia chose to accept only women and children. If we wanted to, we could accept children only, orphans of war. But this didn't happen. They didn't take a single one. So Adamowicz's clear stated purpose is to present Gdańsk in opposition to the xenophobic and populist image of the government as a liberal and open city. Gdańsk is acknowledged, of course, under Adamowicz's leadership is acknowledged by the City Mayor's Foundation, and that is still active. International think tank founded by Benjamin Barber. Adamowicz is also shortlisted to the World Mayor Award, shortlisted just because we were not allowed by the nationalistic government to take in refugees from these specific Middle Eastern countries, but we were at the time already helping migrants from Ukraine, Moldavia, and Belarus. So this is just a side note, and we will not be able to prove prove that this was indeed the case, that Adamowicz was a victim of stochastic terrorism. However, as he says in this on page 38, quote, face hate speech on Facebook almost every day. I try to explain to the correspondents pelting me with coarse words, while Gdańsk is prepared and continues to work on a model for integrating migrants. While we have established the Council for Immigrants in Gdańsk, I continue to defend myself against the populist false accusations of importing Muslim terrorism to Gdańsk. And yet almost all of today's city's residents, except for the Kashubians perhaps, who have always lived here, are refugees. And so at that time, Adamovich turned to Catholic Church, specifically to bishops, archbishops, to intellectual leaders of Catholic Church for support in this project. He actually became inspired by him attending a conference of mayors in Vatican. He was one of the mayors invited by Pope Francis, and this is how his book starts, and he acknowledges feeling ashamed for his country and his country's refusal to accept refugees. So in his book, in chapter 2, he will be quoting popes and New Testament profusely, addressing to his readers, his listeners, his citizens, Christian feelings. But now, in the terms of laws that we can also, so Adamovich at the time will be promoting one specific idea, will be a humanitarian corridor. Humanitarian corridors are the ones that he's quoting. He will not be acknowledging the Slovenian humanitarian corridor, which is basically accepted to everyone, 10,000 people a day, quite often. He will be rather will be referring to Italian, Belgian, French limited humanitarian corridors who accepted families with children, the elderly, or people with disabilities. Humanitarian corridors, however, are an interesting legal entities, because legally they don't exist. They are formed in a manner similar to the right of transit for third country nationals on airports. Like, you can stay in this transit zone without having to enter a state territory through which you are crossing, and that's based on a specific paragraph of Schengen Borders Code. So other than that, as we know, the legal matters are based on Dublin Conventions, repeated ones on 90, 2003, 2014, which says the first country the refugee enters is a country they apply for asylum, which now is not realistic, placing too much of a burden on small border states and acts against people who are stuck in various waiting rooms. So the said Adamovich appealed to various Catholic conference of Catholic bishops representatives. Specifically, he actually gets a blessing of Archbishop Scrooge, whom we know supported the party, the nationalistic party. However, even he voiced his support. All the same, Adamovich worked closely with Cardinal Nitsch, making him his ally and intermediary in talks with the government. However, by the end of 2017, they already got the no from peace government, and it must have been disheartening that several activities supported by the government were actually meant to raise the sense of unity, national unity, by raising fear of refugees. Yes. And so, but now, were he to live, were Adamowicz to live, he would certainly continue. Apparently, this book published after the election he won, and 2 months before he died. Was meant to be his stronghold and his weapon. So here we witness him complaining about the so-called the rosary chain or Polish borders. This is the only event when we actually managed to create a human chain, and it was a human chain against people coming in rather than yes. And so he also quotes some research that Pope Francis's message is often ignored. But no, all the same, whenever he quotes John Paul II, these specific messages are ignored as well. I'm speeding up a bit. This was this Rosary to the Borders event, which actually took place on the event of the forces of Holy League defeated the fleet of the Ottoman Empire symbolically. Even though the bishops or the priests who supported this idea, they said, well, now this was the type of border that's when it's prayed on, it unites rather than divides. Well, that's not how it was perceived. And so one professor from Catholic University in Lublin said, well, but this lack of solidarity with refugees is a symptom of Christianity failure, but now there were obviously voices against this statement. As well, especially young seminarians seem to disregard three popes' preachings. And even I'm looking at the time, how much time do I have? Okay, good. So now he tries to appeal to like Christian solidarity. Well, we could take in African Christians, not Muslims, just as they do in Lampedusa, but even that it didn't work. He says we are no criminal nations or religions. So if we, this is actually also quite interesting that Adamowicz identifies as a Roman Catholic in Poland, because people quite often don't. They just say like I'm Polish and Catholic, but he clearly acknowledges his intellectual perhaps unity with the Vatican, or the better side of Vatican. So he wants to forge a new tradition in Gdańsk, not a free city of Gdańsk, but a city open to foreigners. A city tradition draws from Vilnius, where his own parents relocated. To the city, who also treated Catholicism as a unifying force, a moving force. And it could be that this Vilnius never existed. Stefan Chwiny, a Polish writer, said that they actually now the center of Vilnius was primarily Polish, and these other ethnic groups were allowed to live on the outskirts of the city. But now, idealistic or not, this is what Adamowicz preached. He also referred to the Hanseatic League tradition. He also said he would not succumb to pressure, so he acknowledged this negative input he was getting from his own citizens of his own city, but he said, I cannot count how many votes I will lose by calling for help for refugees. So he took this into account that he could lose elections. He didn't, though. He didn't. But for him, still, humanitarian crisis was a fundamental issue. So yes, all these appeals, let us build bridges, not walls. He is very quotable. Let us replace hostility with hospitality. This is not what happened. You can read more about the discourse, like church and secular government discourse in my own paper, titled Toszania is at war with Eurasia, the stalemate of Polish government and the Catholic Church in Poland over the Polish-Belarusian borders zone, which was published last year, I think, Miscellaneia Anthropologica and Sociologica, which was a presentation of our very big research group. I also summarized made ideas of Adamowicz's proposal in a short, not so short column for Gdańsk City of Literature, the corridor that did not happen. Now, obviously, we will not have time to cover the 2015 crisis, but I will direct you to more resources in 2 minutes. Still, just to mention, 2015 was for many countries the year when border states discovered that they were border states, that they actually were expected to stop the responsibility, the main responsibility was to protect the fortress Europe. And so the refugee crisis contributed to the consolidation of authoritarian power, obviously in Hungary, but in Poland as well. Barely elected on May 10, 2015, Andrzej Duda was no longer a man from nowhere. He became the president of a country under siege. To direct you to resources, I'm just skipping here. We understand to just a bit of mention of how these articles work against one another. So Article 5.1 of Schengen Border Code says that Article 3 actually says that we are not allowed to dehumanize or put people under pressure or keep them in conditions that are similar to torture. However, Article 15 says claims derogation in times of emergency. So let's say if we have a time of war or if we are feeling threatened, then indeed we can place people in unpleasant or torture-like conditions if we want to protect ourselves. Article 15 says that. So the sources would be Border Monitoring Network, and basically this publication of by Mirovny Institute, meaning the Peace Institute of Ljubljana, Slovenia. They publish all the books, most of the books appear in English, and the key publication is Razor-Wired Reflection on Migrant Movements through Slovenia in 2015. This is where you can download the whole book, analysis and accounts in the form of PDF. That's a collection of articles by Slovenian scholars on the topic of humanitarian corridor. Slovenia managing this immense input of influx of migrants in 2015, which I believe they faced this challenge rather well. And it is quite interesting that what Slovenians did in 2015, they kind of it started with 5 more sentences. It started with a group of migrants sitting in the snowland zone between Croatia and Slovenia. And Slovenians were shocked and decided that no, we cannot keep people in no man's land and have them drink water from the river, or have them sit there in the cold with no tents and no provisions. But this is what we did actually in Poland in 2021, and we normalized this state of affairs. So this is where I stop. Thank you.
So maybe one question.
Sure.
To you is basically what I gathered from you are trying to make sense of this moral conundrum that we are, and you do it in your paper for Mr. Lanea.
Yes.
The contradiction basically between declarations and the actions, and the word and the Catholic and the Catholic identity of this nation. So we're basically trying to psychoanalyze the Polish nation. I don't know. Can you comment on this?
Interesting, yes, indeed, because the Slovenians did not refer to their religious identity. We are partly Protestant, some of them are Catholics. They also are part of the former Yugoslavia, where people identify perhaps more to the East, Serbian East as Orthodox, but the religious identity didn't come in place here, whereas and at the same time, Slovenians acted out of empathy. They also have, the activists apparently have had more agency. The activists were actually invited by government to offer recommendations. And yes, Slovenian activists complained after we already told them in the summer. They said how to proceed. They didn't listen to us, or they didn't listen to us fast enough. But at least the government, Slovenian government, invited activists and also allowed the humanitarian organizations, NGOs, to become active on the border. Whereas the Polish government denied access of humanitarian organizations, religious, non-religious, it didn't matter. And activists were actively discouraged from coming to the border to help refugees. So it actually, yes, it is an interesting psychological conundrum.
And then the role of the church is a kind of cleansing instrument, a moral cleansing.
Yes.
You're absolved from those.
Well, the church apparently seemed to be divided over the issue. I actually tried to get in touch with Bishop Zadarko, who every year, who actually in 2021 came to the border and appeared to promote the idea of humanitarian corridor, because the church, at least these church officials based in Poznan, apparently Bishop Zadarko in Koszalin, were quite attached to this idea still in 2021. And so every year CAP, Conference of Polish Bishops, publishes this very progressive document which says that we should not differentiate between refugees and migrants, because it is quite often impossible to differentiate. But we should not accept refugees to go through big border checkpoints, especially if they are closed, but never mind, you can if you're a migrant, if you're fleeing for your life, if you're protecting your life or for your family's life, then you can pass the border wherever you can. That's the idea. So on paper, it is still all on there. And now in 100 years, it may seem as if the church promoted this idea. Yet at the same time, when you ask activists or people who pass through the border, the actual priests are not there. The church is not there and not taking part. Interesting.
Very interesting. Thank you once again. Very much. And I'm sorry, we have to proceed with another one. This one. And there's no blinds here, so it's kind of.
Yeah, it's
this. I think this is your water. Yeah, a bit of torture, exactly. Okay. We'll move out from this one, and we'll go through. Yeah. We're always running out of time.
Escape, I think.
Say it again?
Escape, press escape.
Well, can't you see my presentation now?
No, because I can still see presentation of Professor Dr. Morska.
Okay. Let's see.
But I can hear you. This is the most important. Oh, now it's something changed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think escape.
Poczekaj, bo...
Myślę, że jak naciśniesz escape, to powinieneś wyjść z tej poprzedniej prezentacji,
Okay,
wiesz?
I got it. Dzięki, Magda.
O, i teraz ciebie widzę. I can see you. Your presentation, I mean.
Good.
And now you have to open because I have forgotten to open when I was starting. Okay.
Perfect. Yes, you see it on the end?
I can see, but not opened. The presentation is not opened.
It's not open?
No. Maybe it is. I can see it. No problem. Go on. But I cannot. Oh, here now it's got. It's okay.
Yes. Got it?
Yes, I get it. Good. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the third presentation in our panel, and this is my own panel, my own presentation, International Border Studies Center at the University of Gdańsk, and entitled Borderlands Paradigm, Practice, Some Examples. So let's just go through this. In the first part, I will talk a little bit about the International Border Studies Center, just give you a brief outline, and then I will dive into the vision of the Borderlands paradigm as I propose in the publication that we had together. Isa mentioned her article in this publication, and I will talk a little bit about what I argue in my paper there. So International Border Studies Center was established in 2021. It's been funded until next month. We are being funded through an internal grant at the University of Gdańsk for advanced research. Founding scholars included German philologists who unfortunately cannot be with us, Miłosława Bożyczkowska-Szewczyk, a number of American studies scholars. Also, a very important founding member of the group was Professor Anna Mazurkiewicz from the History Department and the Vice Dean, the Deputy Dean of the Institute of History. Scandinavian studies scholars, Iberian studies scholars, anthropologists, and social scientists. So as Magda mentioned in her presentation, this is a diverse group, and we have been trying to actually navigate this diversity. How do you define yourself and the border studies agenda within this broad scope of scholars? So some of the things I have to admit have not worked. Not everything has proven to be sufficiently, or scholars have not sufficiently contributed, but I think we have a core group that has formed over these 4 years. But the goals, the founding goals, and I see that we have continued with those goals, with the interdisciplinary approaches to border and borderlands phenomena, international collaboration. We have advanced that. We have sponsored conferences and symposia on border studies and border-related issues. One of the very specific goals that I had in mind when we were funding the group was sponsoring artistic residencies. And as I mentioned before, trying to articulate and investigate and experiment with border studies through the arts as an experimental form of cognition. We've sponsored workshops in this regard because we also believe that in the pedagogy, where you involve students participating in the projects together, you have a group of students who are collaborating with scholars or with artists. And in this sense, we can do artistic residencies, workshops, and engage pedagogy together. And one of the other goals was, of course, how do we forge our niche within the border studies? It's, we all know that it's such a diverse field right now. Everybody seems to be trying to do border studies. How do we find ourselves in that environment, and how do we form what we ambitiously call the Gdańsk School of Border Studies? So conferences that we organized by the IBSC 2021, this was during, you may remember, the pandemic. So we came into existence during the pandemic, and the first conference was online. rethinking border studies, communication across borders. We already tried to think as border studies, what border studies is as a field, and what can we contribute to that. And so our flagship conference is Border Seminar. It started before we established IBSC. It started in 2017 when we have been doing that conference biannually. So the next conference was in 2023, a Border Seminar, Migration Narratives and Border Studies. And this has been the largest conference to date. Perhaps 40 scholars from around the world came, including, for example, Emmanuel Brunjejali or David Newman. So we really made our mark internationally. We were able to bring, for example, Astrid Fellner from the Saarland University, etc. So we were very happy with this conference. We were also able to sponsor artistic residencies. I'll tell you about this in a second. And the last symposium that we did this year in May was Globality Forum, where we were trying to investigate the meeting between the global projects and local histories. This was inspired by the work of Walter D. Mignolo and his theorization of border thinking. So this was, I think, also a successful symposium for us. We also co-organized different other conferences, Pogranicza, which was Polish Academy of Sciences conference. We co-sponsored that conference, the Borderlands. We also trying to find our niche in Gdańsk specifically, trying to address our genius loci in Gdańsk. And I mentioned the German scholar Miłosława Bożyczkowska-Szewczyk. We have collaborated with her, a lab for border memory narratives, in sponsoring at least 2, but probably 3 conferences, among them the big festival of the Günter Grass. We have tried to engage Günter Grass's legacy, who is one of the par excellence novelists, writers of the Borderlands. And he actually establishes the kind of a vision of Gdańsk as the Borderlands. And also the other agenda that we have tried to collaborate with was the projects involving ancient history. These 2 projects, Sacred Places and Sacredness and the Art of Love, were in collaboration with the Melamo project, which is a scholarly group investigating ancient history. So we went into the archaeology and into ancient history as well, investigating the borderlands of the past. Here's some publications that we have been able to publish during our work stint of the few years that we had. So Baltic Borderlands is a publication edited by our funding chair, Anna Mazurkiewicz, Gdańsk, Danzig, Gduńsk, and the impact of exchange. I think this is a very important contribution. We're trying to reflect on the Balticness. On the other hand, we have also published a translation of a Basque children's literature and a comic book, Usoa, translated by the member of our group, Katarzyna Mirgos, and the already mentioned Miscellanea Anthropologica et Sociologica special issue, border studies issue, where we included the work of the members of our group. Here's a more specific look at the table of contents. Not all the contributions are included here, but as you can see, we start with Carlos Morton, who is an honorary senior member of the group. He's a playwright, Chicano playwright, which goes back to the American studies focus of our group. And he writes a personal essay, personal history, which he calls the Tao of Mestizaje, which he tries to reflect about his history as a border person and a border writer. Meiza Hickson, a scholar from UC Santa Barbara, gave us this article on the investigation of the arts representation of history, colonial history in the Santa Barbara courthouse murals. Very interesting investigation involving gender readings of these colonial murals. Krzysztof Ulanowski, who is the member of the Melamo project, investigating the figure of the seer as an example of contact and crossing the boundaries between Mesopotamian and Hellenistic civilizations. So here you see this ancient approach. We already mentioned Izabela Morska's contribution. Bartosz Mika went back to the traditional border studies, if you like, approach to the taxi drivers. He investigated taxi drivers during the pandemic. And maybe one other mention, Martin Blaszk, one of our key members, who is a performance artist, and he contributed his work at the intersection of diverse disciplines, but including pedagogy and embodied research as a possible new research practice model. He contributes in this essay. So I'll talk more about Martin in a second. Now, talking about this re-envisioning Borderlands, my contribution to the volume, I would like to take you on this journey that I sketch in this article towards a more productive paradigm, as I argue. What is the Borderlands? So in this article, in the first part, I outline the archaic world as a vision as an island, and the ocean was the ultimate border in the archaic world. Then I'll talk about the Columbian crossing and its consequences, emergence of the global borderlands, and the legacies of these concepts. So I go back in the article to remind the readers that initially the original border of the world was the ocean. And because in the archaic world, the world was conceived as an island, the island of the earth. And so before Columbus, Europeans believed themselves to be inhabitants of that island. And the orbis terrarum was an island consisting of Europe, Asia, Africa, bounded by the ocean. So the ocean was the ultimate border of the world. This had consequences for how we as humans considered ourselves in relation to that world, right? This had epistemic consequences. Now with the Columbian crossing had consequences for new cartography. New cartography emerged, and this is the 1507 already. You see, this is the first map, Cosmographiae Introductio, the first map upon which America is the fourth part of the orbis terrarum, and an island in itself appears. This world had not been yet explored in any important sense, apart maybe from the debacle on the Caribbean, but the map is already there. And that had profound consequences, not for the first time. I'm quoting from Edmundo O'Gorman. The orbis was conceived as including not only the island of the earth, but the ocean itself, and therefore not only the newly found lands, but any other lands that may appear in the future. So in this sense, we transcended the bounds of the island, and the wall of the ocean as the border was broken. So that had epistemic consequences, the consequences for epistemology and subjectivity. In this moment, a new man is born, who could claim sovereignty over the whole universe by just looking at that map. And this also relates to this, for example, concept of immutable mobiles by Bruno Latour, where we take a map and that map already takes the world with you, and you can subject the world to your will. So the world was something made into something of European men's making. The universe was revealed as a vast inexhaustible quarry in that moment, yes, in that putting that America on the map, out of which one would carve out his world, depending solely on his own initiative, his own energy, his own technical abilities. So in this moment, a new epistemology of freedom from restraint was born, a new unbounded subjectivity. And we can correlate this also with the moment of the emergence of Diego Cogito. As we put the world on the map, we emerged as the knowledgeable man, but we also, the darker side of this man is Diego Conquiro, the man who is the conqueror. And the epitome of that would be, of course, by 1519, Hernán Cortés. So another consequence is that the Western Hemisphere, as it is placed on that map, that there is no essential difference in between these continents. So the Western Hemisphere could not be in any essential way different, nor any other possible prospective discoveries could not be in any essential way different from the old world. The consequence was that the America and the world were invented as the land of opportunities, of the future and of freedom, and denied the right of difference, not reduced to inferiority. So if you were different, you were either had to assimilate to our world, or you were immediately reduced to inferiority. This goes back to the argument of Tsvetan Todorov in his book, The Conquest of America. In this sense, the new man is born. The modern man is born at that moment. This is the new man, which spells the destruction of the world to which he came, and specifically he, right? This is the arrival of patriarchy. The image on your right, this is the arrival of Americo Vespucci and his encounter with America. Of course, she's naked and she's languishing in a hammock because she's a woman. So the dawn of this new man spelled the dispossession of its peoples, this people of the New World, the birth of colonial fantasies and simulacra, right? We're imposing our views on the world. We're not actually seeing the world as it is. We are imposing our expectation. We are inventing the world as we go ahead forward, and we evade consequences. We evade those moral consequences, right? So the strategies of evasion are also part of that. So this is the birth of coloniality, the birth not only of the colonial as an economic model, but the coloniality as the coloniality of knowledge and of being. Coloniality that's an epistemic coloniality and ontological coloniality, right? And so this is a corollary. The borderlands as the territory, the theater, it becomes the theater for the agency of this new man. This is the borderlands of the modern world. So the borderlands facilitates the emergence of modernity and its darker side, coloniality, right? This is where the agency of that modern man takes place. Now, to give you an example how that happens, so of course, the global borderlands does not start. It starts in the Spanish Main, what came to be known as the Spanish Main. Tierra Firme, Yucatan, Golfo became known as the Spanish Main. The English referred to this as the Spanish Main, and Carl Sauer, thus sailing to the Spanish Main, became sailing on the Spanish Main. So originally, the Spanish Main was just Tierra Firme, the solid land, the littoral of South America. Later on becomes the whole of the Caribbean world, right? And we know that this world becomes, after a while, a theater for rivalry between different imperial powers. So it's a struggle in between different empires, European empires, and later on, the same kind of epistemology, the same kind of behavior is transported forward by 1565. The Philippines become part of that world. So the Pacific world is turned into Europe's borderlands. And of course, the Caribbean had been translated into that before. So implications for historiography were amazing. We envisioned ourselves as we moved forward into the world, and Frederick Jackson Turner's frontier thesis is a great example. He talks about the expansion across the continent, which made Europeans into something new, into people both coarse and curious, self-disciplined, spontaneous, practical, inventive, filled with restless nervous energy, lifted with exuberance, which comes with freedom. So this very exalted rhetoric that we see we are being renewed in the encounter with the borderlands, right? It's a promise of perennial rebirth. However, the shortcomings were in the thesis of Frederick Jackson Turner. Of course, it was Anglo-centrist, unidirectional. It was only moving west. It was a positive interpretation. It was futural, and it was primarily anthropocentric, right? It's interesting that American historiographers also arrive at the concept of borderlands. Herbert Eugene Bolton proposes in response to Frederick Jackson Turner thesis in 1933 proposes the Borderlands thesis. He challenges unidirectionality and Anglocentrism. He is the student of the Spanish borderlands. So here's his book, The Spanish Borderlands. And he talks about the essential unity of Western Hemisphere. So for the first time, only in the 1930s, do we start to think about this non-linear, that the concept of borderlands as multi-directional appears, right? And not only Anglo-centrist. However, there's also shortcomings. It is Eurocentric. It employs Christophilic triumphalism, as it was referred to by one scholar, and it also is narrowed in time from Columbus to the present. So even though Bolton makes an important contribution to thinking through America through the concept of the borderlands, it is still very limited in focus, right? And you see, this is, I'm just give you the, this is just the consequences of this type of thinking continue into the present. We behave as if we are the frontier man. On the left-hand side, you see the program of the Star Wars with the Reagan administration initiates, of course, later on the invasion of Iraq. And of course, this is an epistemology and a view of the world that is exported outside the Western world. The Russians behave in the same pattern most recently, right? So a differential imaginary I would like to propose would have to recognize first the historical dimension of other routes and other borderlands, the borderlands that had been invisible to Columbus, although he already in 1502, he had a privileged glimpse of the American borderlands as it was at that moment. When he caught a canoe at the coast of Honduras, he had the privileged glimpse of the first contact with the merchant class, which would later be found throughout New Spain, and even further a native merchant gave the first account of the Pueblo peoples of New Mexico, 1,000 miles journey to the north. So the map on the right shows a little bit of those trade links in between native nations. And we had completely ignored those links, those borderlands in our 500 years history. So we should think of I'm trying to propose concepts such as transfrontera space, a new type of thinking where we think of borderlands as a transfrontier and we try to think of contact zones and contact subjects, yes? We think about co-presence and interactive improvisational dimensions of different colonial encounters and subjects constituted in and by their relations to each other, co-presence, interaction, interlocking understandings and practices, often within radically asymmetrical relations of power. This is after Mary Louise Pratt, Imperial Eyes. After Arjuna Padurai, I argue also that we need a new type of imagination, that imagination is crucial in activating those different relationships and in imagining those different relationships. So imagination is a key part of the social property that must be cultivated, says Arjuna Padurai. He calls for multiple attachments, multiple identities, multiple commitments. And he calls not only for cosmopolitanism of the present, but he calls for cosmopolitanism of the past. We should pluralize our history, right? So this is what I've been trying to do with these contrasting the one view of the epistemic and subjectivity of the Europeans with this other type of history. So art becomes an important avenue for intervening into those models, into reshaping our imaginary. I'll give you an example from Blood and Brains by Roger Guenveur Smith. And this is just a quote from his performance. I've gone from Jamestown to Trenchtown to Johnstown, fugitive in the jungles of Suriname and the hills above South Central. So what kind of map he's creating? Jamestown is Virginia, Trenchtown is Jamaica, Guyana is in Johnstown, Suriname is Latin America, littoral, tierra firme, and South Central is Los Angeles. This is the transfrontera space that he is creating in his work. This is also rooted in this maroon consciousness. I'll give you another example from Richard Montoya's Anthems, a play in 2002, where he is standing as an actor, he plays a Panamanian character at Arena Stage. Specifically, Arena Stage is a regional theater, very important regional theater in Washington, D.C. And he says there, speaks of and indicts the President Bush. Your President Bush, he killed thousands of people here in Panama. Muerte a los americanos. He says this mind you, in 2002, this is the year, just not even a year after 9/11, right? And he's able to say those words, those for the death to Americans, right? But what he's programming. He programming the connection between the epicenter of American policies. This is the Washington, D.C., and the epicenters of their consequences. This is Panama, and that each of these places are connected. And the connections are political, are economic, are affective, are moral, right? This is the transfrontier space on those multiple levels. And I finished this presentation with this new model that I'm trying to work out. And this is built on this native epistemology of the sacred hoop. Sacred hoop is the epistemology, the belief in that everything in the world is connected. That the ultimate reality in the world is that everything, all beings, all the spirits, the ancestors, humans have a special role to play in this relationship, but everything is connected. And we have been, as I said before, anthropocentric. So we have to open this up to other types of being in the world, right? To this non-dualistic, pluralistic approach, seeking harmony with all things, denying opposition, non-hierarchical and egalitarian. And then when we try to embrace this kind of perception, where we seek out connections, yes, where we see the relatives that everything is related, then maybe we start to see more broadly types of borderlands that I'm arguing here. And one other thing that should be mentioned: spherical space and spherical cyclical time. These are the circular concepts that are privileged by the Indians. This is why the image of this person dancing, because the circular does not privilege just one point. It is not forward orientation. It is not linear. This is not the privileging of one point that is ahead of the other. All points in the circular concept that make up the sphere of the being to have a significant identity and function. All points matter in the circular vision, right? So I finished with this model that I take from native theater, the Spider-Woman theater: circles upon circles upon circles. And I quote from Muriel Miguel: storytelling starts at the kitchen table and your parents' lap. Storytelling begins there about who you are. Then it continues from there about who you are in the family, where you are as a tribal member, as part of that particular nation. Then where that nation is in the community, where the community belongs to the world. There's always circles upon circles upon circles. So this is the idea of the new borderlands. The borderlands envisioned not in terms of lines and not in terms of networks, but in terms of circles. If you were at the presentation of the border textures, that's why I very much relate to the concept proposed by the UNIGAR group of the border studies, where they are trying to work out that idea of border textures, border weaving, the story weaving. But I argue that the stories are so important. Stories matter in building the conceptual model for the borderlands, yes? And when we activate those places, imagination of the places that we perhaps have not been able to see, we will start to make them real, and we will make the borderlands more real, other than imagined, right? So the new borderlands paradigm would be multi-centric, decentralized, none is privileged, and we will then acquire the new ice, yes? So new ice, and this is again the model of the man, the person dancing with circles, because it's mobility. We also have to be mobile. Everything is in motion, right? And this is an idea to stand, because we are a Western people, right? We have been programmed by Western epistemologies, but this is an argument for us to step on that slash in between epistemologies. This is what, after Walter Mignola, calls the border gnosis, yes, where we stand on the slash between different epistemologies. We recognize what has been repressed in our purview and try to negotiate with that. So in IBSC, we have worked with our work. We have sponsored the artistic residencies, and this is the publication of the Carlos Morton's play, Zaklęte Wiatrze, Trapped in Amber, where we have tried to apply that philosophy to the history of Gdańsk. And we try to work with the border gnosis, for example. This is the story, this character, this is the beginning of the play, this is the end of the play. This is the character of Anna Kruger, the witch who was burnt at a stake in the 1600s. And we bring her at the end of the play. She's resurrected to cast a spell at one of the, a priest actually, a kind of a resurrection of the repressed. This is the Gnostic moment in our play, right? And also we dialogue, by the way, with Günter Grass in this play. And one other example is that Martin Blaschke has created performances on migration, where he works with mesh wire. He engages physically in the space, walking, and he's mapping the city. So his first aim was to consolidate and develop own narrative in connection with migration. Second aim was to find a suitable embodiment for migration through performance, actions and interactions with objects, repertories to be used in future performances. And third aim was create a response to the building of barriers against migration. So he starts with his own body, his own very local, in-place being, but he also connects with the larger histories of migration, right? And one other workshop that he did just this year was the Border Gnosis workshop, where he engaged students to work with the concept of the circles upon circles upon circles. So here's a performance that he was creating with the students. And eventually, this was the piece so they create those circles upon stories of migrants, working also with text, writing their own texts, reworking the migrants' texts, their own poetry, and even weaving their own hat, which connects with the story weaving, right? So this is the last slide. I take this concept of the Native American relatedness instead of relationality. And I would like to contrast these two concepts. When relationality describes connectedness, a view that nothing exists in isolation, whereas relatedness signifies that but also stands for kinship and for the desire to feel loved, connected to others, meaningfully involved with the broader social world. So yes, if relationality is a descriptive term, right, describes connectedness, relatedness has an imperative content, a meaning in it, right? It's a term calling us to actively seek out relations, to recognize mutuality, and to proceed mindfully in the world. So my vision for the future of the IBSC would be border studies in epistemic relatedness, where we are actively seeking out connections with the world outside. And this perhaps could be the Gdańsk School of Border Studies, as I propose. Thank you very much. Thanks. I know we ran out of time.
Thank you. I think you are running out of your break. Yes, you have a break and then the next session.
Oh, no, actually in 20 minutes there is a screening of a film.
Ah, okay, good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a question there.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much for this very inspiring presentation. I mean, there's so much I would like to relate to. I mean, we run out of time, we already said it, and it's just a shame that there is not hundreds of people we can, because this is really something we have to think about border studies right now. I mean, I was at the conference in Luxembourg 2 weeks ago, and there was this panel also. You mentioned these scholars like Astrid Fellner, Chiara Pavlina, and so on. And I mean, actually, who wants to kind of pursue the idea of something like an art-based research, and which I very much appreciated. You, I mean, Astrid told me about you, so this is why I'm
so cool.
because it's very inspiring. So I'm I'm a filmmaker myself, and I try to learn also social scientists, and I'm trying to develop also a lot of this art-based research idea. So this is I'm very happy that also in Poland there is something like a debate which is growing on this kind of approach, right? So
yeah.
But I wanted to, I mean, I have thousands of questions, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe we should start here or not. I mean, you showed these wonderful examples of this. I mean, this is my term. I call it art-based research in border studies, but you call it. I mean, you have these artist residencies, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's as much as I understood, it is there is a participating approach behind it.
Right.
So you or the residents, they kind of try to involve also students with it, and this is and then explore, I don't know, also concept of borders, right? It's
yeah, absolutely.
So because when they are working with for example, then they take this approach, and then they kind of deconstruct it with artistic.
Right, they can rewrite it, you know, they can work through it or from the back forward, you know, I mean, from the front to the back, you know, Martin has done that. He inverted the process, for example. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very interesting approach. So actually my question is, how far is it, because the art-based research approach as I'm using it is very much collaborative. The idea is that you, for example, present, or as I do with my films, for example, I show it, and it has like a border-related border studies foundation, but it's I show them the phenomena, and then with the audience, we try to collaboratively examine where's the border phenomena, where are the borderlands, for example, how do you
right. Yes, we've done that too. Yes, the photography. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
or you give a camera and you give the student task. You know, bring me one picture of the border, right? And they have a day to do that, right? So for everyone is different. Right?
Okay, then you are mutually discussing.
Yeah. All right.
Very interesting. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we should.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be happy, and I'll give you the book. And also, this publisher who published our book, Change to Process, they're from Gdańsk. They just published this volume, and you might be interested in that. So I have only one copy, but I'll give you this one, and I'll advertise this one. And I'll give you my card as well.
I give you also something in exchange. This is something like I give you that. This is something we will have an exhibition the day after tomorrow in Wroclaw, where we are actually showing our work, where we explore borders through coal mine and disappearing village of the former which yeah, we were also engaging with the artist-based research approach.
That would be very nice, but I think I'm catching a train on Thursday. Yeah, that would be lovely. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's dangerous as well.
So, any other questions? Are we done?
I would like to congratulate you for the part, because this was indeed a wonderful and inspiring presentation.
Maybe we'll take a picture together with Magda in the back.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you very much, and I think your presentation was very inspiring. And if you look at it, your conclusions from the perspective of the flood, you can see that it is also applicable for our relations to the nature, and how we treat the nature, and how the nature returns us.
Yeah, I agree.
What we are doing, and we are just fighting with something that we shouldn't be fighting. We should be in one with the nature.
Just need to abolish.
So very much, thank you very much for your presentation. It was excellent. Thank you.
Magda, I think you know, and there's I'm sorry you cannot be with us, but this sentiment has been even shared by the first keynote in the opening of the conference. The first keynote was about watershed thinking and water thinking. Where we should think not in terms of where, so the like even like the when I mentioned also Balticness. Where do the Baltic states start? You know, what is the Baltic state? If you think about rivers, it does not include only the nations on the Baltic.
It stays somewhere in
Ukraine, right?
Vienna.
Magda, before we wrap up.